Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the r/EntitledPeople subreddit. Today in the Entitled People stories, we have an entitled customer that breaks OP's finger, but blatantly doesn't care and just walks away. We also have an entitled mother that demands to be let into a facility for ex-felons so that she can see her son because she thinks he was kidnapped. Spoiler alert! He was just avoiding her. I wonder why. And last but certainly not least, we have an ex-boyfriend that thinks he's entitled to half of OP's salary. His reason? Because he doesn't want to work and she only spends it on bills anyways. A bunch of charmers today, let me tell ya. So without further ado, let's jump into the stories. Entitled customer dislocates my finger, keeps on shopping. Pre-COVID, I worked at a big club warehouse in customer service. The job was great, and members were usually awesome, but every now and then, you'd find the most entitled son of a bees to ever walk the earth. Based on the way they treated me and others, I can only assume they don't even see us as human. We were only lifelike robots, built to ring up their items and load their carts. One such incident that proves my assumption happened on a super busy Saturday. It was pouring outside. Members were fighting over parking close to the door, then bolting for the entrance as if their lives depended on it. As a courtesy to members, on rainy days, we always had someone outside in the front of the cart return bay to dry off the carts. This day was so busy, members were coming in faster than I could dry carts for them. Most were super nice and patient. They waited in line for a dry one, and almost everyone thanked me. A few, who were in a hurry or didn't care about dry carts, just skipped the line and grabbed a wet cart. One such member rushed up and grabbed a wet cart from behind me. Sometimes carts get jammed or snagged together. Usually it's the bulk for the kiddie seats that get tangled, but sometimes it's a warp in the cart from damage. This poor member grabbed one such warped cart, and it dragged its buddy with it. The member attempted to dislodge it. He yanked, he twisted, he shook them violently. He looked to me and demanded, "Help me get these carts separated." I offered him a dry one. Nope. He wanted that cart specifically for some reason. I abandoned my drying rag and attempted to pry the carts apart. It was like trying to separate two buffaloes in a horn lock. They refused to budge. I looked at the metal flap that allowed the carts to nest into each other. I saw where it was snagged and reached in to coax it free. I placed my other hand on the lip of the second cart to give me leverage while I untangled them. The member demanded loudly, "Come on, I'm in a hurry." He decided I was clearly too incompetent to separate them, so he reached out to give the front cart one more tug. At that exact moment, I loosened the second cart and the front cart sprang free. It launched forward, catching my thumb between it and the second, stationary cart. I heard the pop sound of my thumb dislocating a few seconds before the pain hit me. I yanked my hand free and managed to stifle my choice profanity with less fireable words. Sucking sticks of saffron on a ship. My supervisor witnessed this and still tells people it's his favorite outburst. The member just looks at me like I'm nuts. There, all I needed was a cart. Was that so hard? I'm cradling my oddly shaped hand. "Sir, I think you broke my finger." The member just shrugs, huffs, and walks into the warehouse. Looked like he forgot I existed the second he took his eyes off me. My supervisor witnessed the whole thing, but was more worried about me, not the member. He pulled me aside and radioed for ice. Lucky or unlucky, I am very pain tolerant. It's not the first joint I've dislocated. I also know the easiest way to end the pain is to reset the joint. I fiddle around with my weirdly dangly thumb until I feel it click back into place. My whole thumb was swollen and turning a lovely shade of purple. My supervisor got me sent inside to write up an incident report. He sent a posse of employees into the store to find the member and sentence him to banishment. But As it was insanely busy, they never found him. By far, the worst customer ever. Aw, I hope OP got some workers' comp or something as a reward for having to deal with that a-hole of a customer. And with poise at that. I commend him because OP chose to say sucking sticks of saffron on a ship, whereas I don't think I would have been able to hold in what the bleep, you effing piece of bleep. Minus the bleeps if you know what I'm saying. But that's why I'm not cut out for customer service. If you don't let me in my son's room, I'm calling the police. Background: I own a 32-unit facility that houses felons who have finished their sentences and need some help returning to society. Each unit houses 2 clients. We do stuff like teach them computer skills and help them learn to cook, build a resume, stuff like that. 6 a.m., about 2 hours ago, my night manager calls me and tells me there's a lady pounding on the front door, insisting she needs to talk to whoever is in charge. So I tell him to give her my number. Before I'm even off the phone with him, she's calling me. Before I can even introduce myself, she goes off, accusing me of kidnapping her son. This man is 34 and here 100% of his own free will, and forcing him to work for me. He doesn't work for me, he works at the recycling center. Then she goes into how, as his mother, she needs to see what kind of conditions he's living in, but he refuses to let her visit. According to her, he would never refuse to see her unless he was under duress. So what she needs, demands that I do, is to come to the facility and unlock his door so she can go in and look around. I told her that's not going to happen. I'm not letting her into someone else's home. She is not a resident here. Her son is not the only person who lives in that space, and I would need permission from both her son and his roommate to let her in. She has no right to be here. Now please get off our property or we will have you trespassed. This caused her to shriek, "How dare you!" into the phone and tell me that if she isn't let into the room within 10 minutes, she was going to call the cops and have me charged with kidnapping. I tell her, go ahead, and I hang up. I wasn't at the facility, but from the security cam footage, it appears that when the cops that she had called showed up and she explained the situation to them, her son came to the front door and told the cops he didn't want to see her and that we didn't kidnap him. She went into a rage and attacked her son, but he didn't get hurt. He just backed up and slammed the door. The cops took her away. I don't know what's gonna happen to her, but damn, seeing that dude's mom, he did not have a great start in life. Wow, I would love to pick OP's brain. What an interesting life he probably has, and imagine the stories he has. Also, good on him for running a facility like that. I'm sure a lot of people that finish long sentences have nowhere to go and are just totally lost in this brand new world that they're thrown into. Yes, I have empathy for felons because I know people are capable of changing, and it is very apparent that the particular felon in this story has changed because he chose to cut off his toxic mother. But by the sounds of it though, his mom might end up on parole herself and be his new roomie. Wouldn't that be ironic? Reminds me of this story I read about a guy who robbed a bank to escape his wife, then was sentenced to house arrest. Poor bastard. Ex-boyfriend thinks he's entitled to half my salary. I was with my ex for almost 3 years before we decided to break up simultaneously in November 2020. For context, we moved out to a new apartment in September because I got a job opportunity. He didn't work and still doesn't, and it was closer to my parents. The rent was twice the price of the former rent, 800 euros a month, but we could afford it. We kept our finances separated, but since he didn't have a job, I was the only name on the lease and bills. The whole rent was deducted from my bank account, and he would pay me his half the day after. We had a lot of fights in that new apartment because he couldn't spend as much money on himself as he did before since the rent was more expensive. He kept saying it was my fault, but hey, I didn't force him to come with me. He insisted to move out because the place looked nice. So one day when I came back from work and found my neighbor in my shower and him naked in bed, I gave him a 1-month notice to leave. Legally, I couldn't do it shorter. I moved back to my parents' house to save some money. I pay bills and groceries, but they refuse to charge me rent, saying it's also my home and all is good. I was waiting to get the deposit back to give my ex his half, minus the bills he stopped paying. So 3 months total of electricity and insurance. I messaged him that I transferred the money, and that was it. He never replied. At least not to me. This boy, 26 years old I precise, called my mom to complain. The deposit was 600 euros total, so 300 each, but he thought he was entitled to the whole 600 for whatever reason. He never specified, and then asked for half my salary for the next 3 years, as our lease was 3 years long. The reason for that? I don't work, so I can't pay rent on my own, and you never use your money except for bills anyway. I save money because I have projects. I don't throw it out the window once I pay rent, but that idea never hit him. When I didn't answer his texts, he spammed my mother for days and nights. I threatened to take legal actions if he didn't stop, so he did, and complained to our mutual friends instead. To be clear, he doesn't work because he doesn't want to. He's not sick or disabled. He never went to high school because it bored him, and lives off the government subventions. When I met him, he was looking for a job, but I think it was a trap to lure me. Jesus, I can't believe poor OP wasted 3 years of her life on this loser. At least it was only 3 years though. Some people get stuck with losers for much longer. She definitely dodged a bullet, and I'm glad she moved on and learned her lesson. I feel bad for the next person that Moochie McGee ends up with. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed those 3 entitled people stories. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!